What do you mean it's happening now? I thought we had more time. We need to address this immediately.
I'll handle the briefing. You focus on the data.
Some hearts whisper secrets in empty rooms, never knowing who might be listening. Olivia Bennett learned this truth on a spring evening that would change everything. When her carefully guarded feelings spilled out like water from a broken glass, unstoppable and revealing. The crystal chandeliers of the riverside. Hotel cast dancing shadows across marble floors as hundreds of guests celebrated Sterling Enterprises' 20th anniversary. Olivia smoothed down her emerald dress, the nicest thing she owned, and slipped away from the grand ballroom. Her chest felt tight, her breathing shallow. She needed airspace. A moment away from him, she found refuge in a quiet corridor on the second floor, pushing through a door marked with a discreet sign. The bathroom was all gleaming mirrors and soft lighting, blessedly empty. Olivia leaned against the cool counter, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers. Grace answered on the first ring, her voice bright with curiosity. "How's the fancy party?" "I can't breathe," Olivia whispered, her voice cracking slightly. "Grace, I need to talk to someone before I lose my mind completely." "What happened? Are you okay?" Olivia glanced around the elegant space, checking the stalls to ensure she was alone. Everything looked empty. "I'm fine. I just needed to hear your voice. He's here tonight, and he looks absolutely perfect. That dark suit, that smile, and I feel like I'm drowning." Grace's tone softened with understanding. "Daniel, you've been working for him for 2 years now. Liv, when are you going to either tell him how you feel or let this go?" "Let it go?" Olivia let out a breathless laugh. "That's like asking me to stop my heart from beating. Do you know what he did today? During the morning strategy meeting, he pushed his sleeves up to his elbows. It's just this casual thing while explaining the quarterly projections, and I completely lost my train of thought. Grace, I'm supposed to be a professional, and I'm acting like a teenager with her first crush. It's actually kind of adorable," Grace said gently. "It's torture," Olivia corrected, pacing between the sinks. "And tonight is even worse." He arrived with Natasha Wilde on his arm. "You know who she is, right? The hotel heiress with the perfect face and the perfect life." She kissed his cheek for all the photographers, and his hand was on her waist like she belonged there. And I just wanted to disappear. "Those society relationships don't mean anything real," Grace offered. "Everyone knows that." Olivia's voice dropped even lower, thick with emotion. It felt real when they walked in together. It felt real when she whispered something in his ear that made him smile. "I'm just his marketing strategist, Grace. I create campaigns and analyze brand metrics. I'm not the kind of woman who fits into his world of yacht parties and charity galas." "Stop putting yourself down," Grace said firmly. "You're talented, you're smart, and any man would be lucky to be with you. You have to say that because you're my best friend. Say it because it's true. But seriously, what are you going to do about this? You can't keep torturing yourself." Olivia closed her eyes, leaning against the counter. "I know. Sometimes I imagine just walking up to him and saying everything I've kept locked inside for 2 years. All of it, just out in the open. What would you say?" Grace asked softly. The question opened something in Olivia, and the words began pouring out like she'd been waiting her whole life to speak them. "I'd tell him that I notice everything about him. The way he runs his hand through his hair when he's frustrated. How his eyes change from blue to gray, depending on what he's wearing. I'd tell him that he's the kindest boss I've ever had. That he remembers everyone's birthday and asks about their families. And that matters more than any of his money or status." Grace stayed quiet, letting her continue. "And then," Olivia said, her voice growing more passionate, "I'd tell him that every single morning when I walk into that building, my heart starts racing because I might see him. That I've memorized the exact shade of his eyes, that stormy blue-gray that makes me forget my own name. I'd tell him that he's the last thing I think about before I sleep and the first thing I remember when I wake up." The words were flowing faster now, 2 years of longing compressed into this single moment. "If I had real courage, Grace, I'd tell him that I want him so badly it physically hurts. Not just the surface things, although I definitely think about those too. But I want everything. I want to know what makes him laugh when he's alone. I want to be the person he calls when something wonderful happens. I want to trace my fingers along his jawline and mess up that perfectly styled hair. Her voice grew husky, almost desperate. And if I'm being completely honest, if I had true courage, I'd tell him that I want to show him what real connection feels like. I want him to forget every shallow woman who only sees his bank account. I want to love him until he understands what it means to be truly known by someone. The silence on the other end stretched for a moment before Grace spoke. Wow, Olivia. That was intense and beautiful. I know, Olivia laughed, slightly embarrassed now that the moment had passed. 2 years of holding everything inside will do that to you? I sound crazy. You don't sound crazy? You sound like someone who's deeply in love. But you need to decide what you're going to do about it. This is destroying you slowly, Olivia sighed, straightening up and checking her reflection in the mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I should get back downstairs before someone notices I'm gone. Thank you for listening to my rambling as always. Anytime, that's what I'm here for. Now go back down there and try to enjoy the party, even if he is with someone else. I'll try. Love you, Grace. Love you too, Liv. Olivia ended the call and tucked her phone back into her small clutch. She took a moment to fix her hair and dab at her eyes, making sure no evidence of her emotional confession remained visible. That's when she heard it. A soft clearing of a throat. Barely audible, but unmistakable. Her blood turned to ice as she realized. The large accessible stall at the end had been closed this entire time. She'd glanced at it when she entered, but the door hadn't been fully shut, so she'd assumed it was empty. Now she could clearly see the shadow of shoes beneath the partition. Someone had been in there the whole time. Someone had heard every desperate, passionate word of her confession about Daniel Sterling. "Hello," Olivia called out, her voice shaking. "Is someone there?" The bathroom door suddenly swung open and a young server rushed in, balancing a tray and muttering about a spill. He barely glanced at Olivia as he hurried toward the supply closet on the far wall. Olivia stood frozen, her mind racing with horror as a terrible realization crashed over her. This wasn't the women's restroom. In her distracted, emotional state, she'd somehow walked into the men's room without even noticing the sign on the door. And someone had been in that stall the entire time she'd been pouring her heart out to Grace. Confessing her secret love for her boss, her face burning with mortification, Olivia grabbed her clutch and practically fled from the bathroom, her heels clicking frantically against the tile floor. Her mind spun with panic, trying to figure out who might have been in there, desperately hoping it was just some random guest who would never connect her confession to Daniel Sterling. She rushed toward the elevators, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She didn't see the stall door slowly opening behind her. She didn't see Daniel Sterling step out, his jacket draped over his arm, his expression completely stunned. He'd come upstairs to take an important business call away from the noise, seeking the privacy of the empty corridor. He'd been about to leave the stall when he heard her voice, and then he'd frozen, unable to move. Unable to breathe as he listened to her confess feelings he'd never imagined. She possessed. Daniel stood alone in the quiet bathroom now, running his hand through his hair, his heart racing in a way it hadn't in years. Olivia Bennett, his brilliant, beautiful marketing strategist. The woman he'd been trying desperately not to notice for 2 years, wanted him. Not his money, not his status, but him. He thought about all the times he'd caught himself watching her during meetings, admiring the passionate way she defended her creative ideas. He remembered the day 8 months ago when she'd laughed at something Thomas said during a company picnic. Really laughed, and the sound had done something strange to his chest. He recalled all the times he'd forced himself to date Natasha and others like her, trying to meet his father's expectations, trying to ignore the way Olivia made him feel truly alive for the first time in years. His last serious girlfriend, Jennifer, had shattered his ability to trust anyone. She'd used him for his connections, cheated with his business partner, and left him convinced that no one could want him for who he truly was beneath the money and power. But Olivia's words, her raw, honest confession, had broken through all his carefully constructed walls in a single moment. Daniel straightened his jacket, his jaw set with determination. Everything had just changed, and he wasn't entirely sure what he was going to do about it. But one thing was absolutely certain. He could never unknow what he'd just heard, and more importantly, he didn't want to. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Olivia sat at her desk, staring blankly at her computer screen where marketing analytics blurred into meaningless numbers. The weekend had been endless. Replaying that bathroom moment over and over until she'd nearly convinced herself it hadn't been as bad as she remembered. Maybe whoever heard her hadn't known who she was talking about. Maybe they'd already forgotten. Maybe she could just pretend it never happened. "Olivia, Daniel wants to see you in his office." Thomas Chen from accounting poked his head through her doorway, his expression curious. "He specifically requested you come up right away." "Something about the Henderson campaign review." Her stomach dropped like a stone. "Did he say anything else?" Thomas shrugged. "Just that it was private. You okay? You look kind of pale." "Fine," Olivia lied, forcing brightness into her voice. "Just didn't sleep well this weekend." After Thomas left, she gathered her portfolio with trembling hands, trying to steady her breathing. This was just a normal business meeting. Daniel requested private reviews all the time. It meant nothing. She smoothed down her burgundy blouse and checked her reflection in the small mirror by her door. Professional, composed, completely unaffected by the fact that someone might know her deepest secret. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending to her own execution. Daniel's corner office overlooked the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that usually took her breath away. Today she barely registered it. His assistant, Margaret, smiled warmly as Olivia approached. "Go right in, dear. He's expecting you." Olivia knocked twice and heard his voice, that deep, smooth voice that had haunted her dreams for 2 years. "Come in." She opened the door and found him standing by the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the morning light. He wore a navy suit that fit him perfectly, and when he turned to face her, Olivia's breath caught in her throat. There was something different in his eyes, something intense and searching that she'd never seen directed at her before. Something that made her knees weak and her heart race. "Good morning, Daniel," she managed, keeping her voice professional despite the way her pulse hammered in her ears. "Olivia," he said softly, and the way he spoke her name sent shivers down her spine. It wasn't his usual tone, the one he used in meetings or passing conversations. This was intimate somehow, weighted with meaning. "Please close the door and have a seat." She did, settling into one of the leather chairs across from his desk, clutching her portfolio like armor. Daniel didn't return to his desk as he usually would. Instead, he pulled the other chair around so he was sitting directly in front of her, their knees almost touching. The proximity made her dizzy. She could smell his cologne, that clean, masculine scent that she'd memorized long ago. He began, his blue-gray eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. She couldn't. The Henderson campaign. Olivia offered hopefully, though she already knew that wasn't why she was here. Something in the air between them had shifted, charged with electricity she didn't understand. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Not exactly. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "How long have you been working at Sterling Enterprises, Olivia?" 2 years and 4 months, she answered automatically, confused by the question. "And in that time, you've been an exceptional employee. Your campaigns are innovative, your presentations are compelling, and you've brought perspectives to this company that we desperately needed." His voice was warm, genuine. "You've made Sterling better." Olivia felt heat rising in her cheeks. "Thank you. That means a great deal coming from you. I mean every word." He leaned forward slightly, his gaze never leaving hers. "But I didn't call you up here to discuss your work performance. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." Her heart was racing so fast, she thought he might be able to hear it. "Okay. Double quotes. Do you remember Friday night? The anniversary gala?" The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Olivia's face drained of color, then flooded with heat. I do, she whispered.
Did you happen to use the restroom on the second floor corridor?
She wanted to die. Right there, in that moment, she wanted the earth to open up and swallow her whole. Her hands gripped the portfolio so tightly, her knuckles turned white. I made a mistake, she managed, her voice barely audible. I didn't realize it was the men's room until too late. I'm so sorry if I caused any problems or made anyone uncomfortable. Problems, Daniel repeated, and there was something almost gentle in his tone. Olivia, look at me. She forced herself to meet his eyes and found them filled with an expression she couldn't quite read. Intensity, yes, but also something softer, something that looked almost like tenderness. I was there, he said simply. 3 words that shattered her entire world. Olivia felt like she couldn't breathe. What? In the last stall? I was taking a business call, trying to escape the noise of the party. And then you came in and I heard everything you said to your friend. Oh, God. The words came out as barely more than breath. Olivia covered her face with her hands, humiliation washing over her in waves. I'm so sorry. I'll submit my resignation immediately. I never meant to make you uncomfortable or create an inappropriate situation. I can leave today if you want. I completely understand, Olivia. His hands gently pulled hers away from her face, and suddenly he was holding them. His thumbs stroking across her knuckles in a gesture so tender it made her want to cry. I don't want your resignation. I want to know if you meant what you said. She stared at their joined hands, at the way his long fingers completely engulfed hers. His touch was warm, steady, real. Every word, she admitted quietly, because what was the point in lying now? Her secret was out, exposed in the worst possible way. I've tried so hard to hide it, tried to be professional and appropriate, but yes, I meant every single word. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his hand still holding hers. Then he stood, pulling her up with him. They were standing so close now that Olivia had to tilt her head back to look at him. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and his touch was gentle, almost reverent, like she was something precious. For 2 years, he said softly, his voice rough with emotion, I've been trying to ignore the way you make me feel. Trying to convince myself that what I felt was just attraction, something I could manage and control. I dated Natasha and women like her, went to all the society events my father expected, did everything I was supposed to do. His thumb traced along her cheekbone, and Olivia's breath caught. But none of it worked, because none of them were you. Daniel, she whispered, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. I haven't been able to stop thinking about your words. About you wanting to know what makes me laugh at 2 a.m, about wanting to be the person I turn to. The thought of you with anyone else, Olivia, it makes me feel things I haven't let myself feel in years. His thumb traced across her lower lip, and Olivia's knees nearly gave out. But we work together, she managed. There are rules, complications. Your father has expectations. Natasha is perfect for your world, and I'm just perfect for me, he interrupted. You're perfect for me, exactly as you are. And I'm tired of fighting this. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. If you'll give me a chance, we'll figure out the rest together. Then he kissed her, and Olivia felt her entire universe realign. The kiss was everything she'd imagined during countless sleepless nights, and so much more. It was tender and passionate and full of 2 years of restrained longing, finally set free. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and Olivia's hand slid up to tangle in his hair, messing it up exactly the way she'd dreamed about for so long. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. Have dinner with me tonight? A real date, not hiding, not pretending. Yes, Olivia breathed, her heart soaring. Yes, absolutely yes. That dinner led to another, then another. They tried to be discreet at work, but the chemistry between them was impossible to completely hide. Stolen glances across conference rooms, his hand brushing hers when passing documents. Lunch meetings that ran long because neither wanted to leave. And after work, they fell into each other with an intensity that left them both breathless and amazed. But there were unspoken boundaries that Olivia began to notice. They never discussed the future or what they meant to each other. And most tellingly, he always left before dawn. She would wake in her apartment to find the sheets cool beside her. Only his scent on the pillow as evidence he'd been there at all. It's just new, Olivia told herself, trying to ignore the growing ache in her chest. He needs time. But then there were moments that made her hope for more. The way he listened intently when she talked about her younger brother Thomas and his struggles in college. How he remembered she took her coffee with cream and no sugar. The protective way his hand would settle on her lower back when they were alone. The texts he'd send during the day just to check on her. 3 months into their relationship, everything shifted. Olivia was reviewing campaign analytics when her phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Have you seen this? Attached was a link to a Society page article. The photo made Olivia's blood run cold. Daniel at a charity gala the previous weekend, the one he'd told her he had to attend alone for business reasons. But he wasn't alone. Natasha Wilde was on his arm, stunning in a silver gown that probably cost more than Olivia's monthly rent. The caption read, "Power couple reunited. Sources say Daniel. Sterling and socialite Natasha Wilde are giving their relationship another chance." Olivia stared at the photo, something cracking inside her chest. Daniel's hand was on Natasha's waist, exactly where it had been on Olivia's just 2 nights before. His smile was polished and perfect, the one he wore for cameras and society pages. The one that didn't quite reach his eyes but looked good in photographs? Her phone rang. Grace's name appeared on the screen. "I'm sorry to send you that," Grace said gently when Olivia answered. "But I thought you should know what's being said publicly." "It's fine," Olivia lied, her voice surprisingly steady. "We're not exclusive. He never said we were. Liv, you're sleeping with him. You're spending every night together. Except the nights he leaves before I wake up," Olivia said quietly, finally voicing the thought she'd been avoiding. "Except the nights he has society obligations he never invites me to." Over the following weeks, Olivia watched as Natasha became a fixture in Daniel's public life again. She appeared at company events as his guest, smiling for photos in the lobby. Olivia saw articles about them at restaurant openings, gallery exhibitions, and charity fundraisers. Each photo was a knife to her heart, and at work Daniel continued to seek her out. He still touched her, kissed her, took her to bed. The passion between them hadn't diminished at all. If anything, it had intensified. But so had Olivia's confusion and pain. She tried to end things twice. The first time, he'd looked at her with those storm-gray eyes and said, "She means nothing. It's just for appearances, for my father's business connections. You're the one I want, Olivia. You have to know that." The second time, he'd kissed her until she forgot why she was upset, then made love to her so tenderly she'd cried, but he never said he loved her, never called her his girlfriend, never introduced her to his father or took her anywhere public. Olivia existed in the shadows of his life, while Natasha sparkled in the spotlight, and the realization was slowly breaking her apart. The final breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening in late autumn. Olivia was working late, trying to finish a campaign proposal, when she heard voices in the hallway outside her office. Daniel's voice and a woman's laugh that made her stomach clench. Natasha's laugh, light and musical. "The reservation is at 8, Natasha was saying. "Your father specifically requested we both attend the family dinner this weekend. He's so pleased we're back together." Olivia held her breath, waiting for Daniel's response. "I remember," he replied, his tone neutral but not disagreeing. "He's been talking about it all week. He keeps asking when we're going to make an announcement. I think he wants to start planning the engagement party." Natasha's voice was closer now, right outside Olivia's door. "I told him we're taking things slowly, but honestly, Daniel, it's been months. People are starting to ask questions." Olivia sat frozen at her desk, rain streaking down her window as the truth she'd been avoiding crashed over her. She wasn't Daniel's girlfriend. She was his secret, the one hidden away in the dark. Natasha was the woman who fit into his world, who met his father's approval, who stood beside him in the light, and Olivia was the other woman. The realization was devastating and clarifying all at once. She'd been so focused on the fact that Daniel had chosen to be with her that she hadn't noticed. He'd never really chosen her at all. Not fully, not publicly, not in any way that mattered. That night, after Daniel had left her apartment at his usual pre-dawn hour, Olivia opened her laptop with shaking hands. She found the email she'd been ignoring for weeks. The San Francisco office had an opening for a senior marketing director, significant promotion with better pay, and the chance to run her own department. She'd dismissed it immediately because leaving meant leaving Daniel, but staying meant losing herself completely, with tears streaming down her face. Olivia typed out the transfer request. She kept it professional, citing career advancement opportunities and a desire for new challenges and leadership experience. She requested confidentiality from human resources, asking them not to announce her transfer until everything was finalized. She needed time to prepare, to protect her heart, to figure out how to leave the man she loved, but who would never truly love her back. She hit send before she could change her mind, then curled up on her couch and let herself cry for the future she'd imagined but would never have. The approval came through faster than Olivia expected. Within 10 days, everything was arranged. Human Resources was efficient and discreet, exactly as she'd requested. She would start in San Francisco in 3 weeks, giving her just enough time to pack up her life and say goodbye to the city she'd called home. She told only Grace and her brother Thomas, swearing them both to secrecy. Thomas had noticed her unhappiness weeks ago, asking careful questions about why she always seemed sad despite supposedly dating someone. When she finally told him the truth about Daniel, about being hidden away like a shameful secret, Thomas had hugged her tight and said, "You deserve someone who's proud to be with you, not someone who keeps you in the shadows." Those words echoed in her mind as she packed up her apartment methodically over the following weeks. When Daniel asked about the boxes during one of his late-night visits, she told him she was just reorganizing and donating things to charity. He accepted the explanation without question, distracted by a business deal that was consuming his attention. Their last night together, Olivia tried to memorize everything. The way his hands felt on her skin, gentle yet possessive. The sound of his breathing as he slept beside her, for once too exhausted to leave before dawn. The weight of his arm around her waist, holding her close. The scent of his cologne mixed with something uniquely him that she'd never be able to forget. When he finally woke and left at dawn, kissing her goodbye and promising to call later, Olivia let the tears fall freely. She'd already cried so much over the past weeks that she thought she'd run out of tears. But apparently there were always more. She finished packing her car, loading the last boxes while the city was still quiet, and took one final look at the apartment where she'd loved and lost. She left a note on her desk at Sterling Enterprises for Daniel to find Monday morning. After writing and rewriting it dozens of times, she'd settled on something simple. "I deserve more than shadows. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. Take care of yourself, Olivia." No explanation, no blame, just truth. She deserved to be loved openly, proudly, completely. And Daniel couldn't give her that. Maybe would never be able to give anyone that. His fear of being hurt again, his need for his father's approval. His carefully constructed walls were all stronger than whatever he felt for her. Olivia couldn't fight those battles for him. She could only save herself. The drive to San Francisco took 2 days. Grace had offered to fly out and road trip with her, but Olivia needed the solitude, the long hours alone with her thoughts, and the landscape changing outside her windows. She cried through Nevada and felt something shift as she crossed into California. By the time the Golden Gate Bridge appeared on the horizon, she felt lighter somehow, like she'd shed a weight she'd been carrying for too long. Her new apartment was small, but bright, with large windows that overlooked a tree-lined street. The San Francisco office welcomed her warmly, and her new team was sharp, creative, and hungry to prove themselves. Olivia threw herself into work, into building something that was entirely hers, and slowly the constant ache in her chest began to fade into something manageable. Meanwhile, back in the city she'd left behind, Daniel found her note at 9:30 Monday morning. He'd been in early meetings since 7, and when they finally ended, he'd gone looking for Olivia to steal a few private moments like he always did. Her office was empty, her desk cleared of the personal touches that had made it hers. The note sat in the center, held down by a paperweight he'd given her months ago after a particularly successful presentation. He read it 3 times, each word landing like a physical blow. Then he called Margaret in, his voice tight. "Where is Olivia Bennett?" Margaret looked surprised. "I assumed you knew, Mr. Sterling." She transferred to the San Francisco office. Left Friday afternoon. The world seemed to tilt beneath his feet. Transferred when? How long has this been planned? I believe it was approved about 2 weeks ago. Human Resources handled it directly with her request for confidentiality. Daniel sat down heavily in Olivia's empty chair, still holding the note. 2 weeks. She'd known for 2 weeks that she was leaving and hadn't said a word. She'd spent those last nights with him knowing each one might be the last. And she'd never given him a chance to explain or fix things or even say goodbye properly. Except, he realized with growing horror she'd tried to end things twice, and he'd talked her out of it both times. She'd told him she needed more, and he'd promised her that what they had was enough, while continuing to parade Natasha around for his father's approval and society's expectations. He'd kept Olivia hidden like something shameful, taking her love and passion and giving her scraps in return. He'd been so afraid of being vulnerable again, so terrified of trusting someone completely after Jennifer had destroyed him years ago, that he'd destroyed the only real thing in his life. Jennifer had used him, cheated with his business partner, and left him convinced that love was just another transaction in a world where everything had a price. But Olivia had never wanted his money or his status. She'd wanted him, just him, exactly as he was beneath all the polish and performance. And he'd been too broken and afraid to give her what she deserved. Daniel spent the next 3 days in a fog, going through the motions at work while his mind spun uselessly. He canceled dinner with Natasha and his father, ignoring their calls, asking why. He went to Olivia's apartment building, only to find new tenants already moving into her unit. She'd vanished completely, leaving only that brief note and the gaping hole in his chest where something vital used to be. On Thursday, he finally called Natasha and ended things properly. "Honestly, I can't do this anymore," he told her over the phone. "I'm sorry for wasting your time, but my heart isn't in this relationship. It never has been." To her credit, Natasha didn't sound surprised. "It's that marketing girl, isn't it, Olivia? I saw the way you looked at her at the anniversary gala." "It doesn't matter now," Daniel said quietly. "She's gone, and it's my fault." "Then fix it," Natasha said simply before hanging up. She was more perceptive than he'd given her credit for, and kinder than he deserved. His father was less understanding. "You're throwing away a connection to one of the most influential families in the city for some employee who ran off." Richard Sterling's voice was cold with disapproval. "I raised you better than this, Daniel." "No, Dad," Daniel said, feeling something break free inside him. "You raised me to value connections over people, appearance over substance. You raised me to be afraid of real feeling because feeling means vulnerability. But I'm tired of living that way. I'm tired of being what you expect instead of who I want to be." The conversation ended badly, but Daniel felt freer after it than he had in years. Still, freedom didn't erase regret. He'd lost Olivia through his own cowardice, and he had no idea if he'd ever get the chance to make things right. 6 months passed. Daniel threw himself into work, restructured several departments, and slowly began making changes in his personal life. He started therapy, working through the trust issues Jennifer had left behind. He had honest conversations with his father about boundaries and expectations. He stopped dating entirely, focusing instead on figuring out who he was without performance or pretense, and he thought about Olivia constantly. Her laugh, her passion, the way she'd looked at him like he mattered as a person rather than a position or bank account, the way she'd deserved better than he'd given her, and how he'd been too afraid to offer it until it was too late. Grace finally called him one evening in spring. "She told me not to," Grace said without preamble. "But I've watched my best friend slowly start living again, and I think she deserves to know that you're doing the work." "How is she?" Daniel asked, his heart racing at even this indirect connection. "She's good. Really good, actually. She got another promotion. She's running the entire West Coast marketing division now. She's made friends. She's dating casually. She's building a life that's entirely hers. Grace paused. But I also know she still thinks about you. And I think she deserves closure, or maybe a second chance, if you've actually changed. I have, Daniel said quietly. But I'm not sure I deserve a second chance after how badly I hurt her. Maybe not, Grace agreed. But maybe that's something she should decide for herself. She's in San Francisco. The rest is up to you. Daniel booked a flight that same night. He didn't have a plan, didn't know what he'd say, or if she'd even agree to see him. But he had to try. He owed her that much, and maybe, if he was very lucky and had done enough work on himself, she might give him the chance to prove he'd finally learned what really mattered. He found her at the San Francisco office on a Wednesday afternoon, watching through the glass walls of the conference room as she presented to her team. She looked radiant, confident in a way he'd never fully seen before. Her burgundy blazer was sharp and professional, her hair pulled back, and when she smiled at something one of her team members said, Daniel felt his heart clench with longing and regret and hope all tangled together. He waited in the lobby till her meeting ended, watching her laugh with colleagues as they filed out. When she finally noticed him standing there, her smile faltered, then faded completely. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the open space. Months and hurt and unfinished business stretching between them. Olivia said something to her team, then walked toward him slowly, her expression carefully neutral. Daniel, what are you doing here? I needed to see you, he said simply. Can we talk, please? She studied him for a long moment, and he could see her weighing the decision. Finally, she nodded. There's a coffee shop around the corner. 20 minutes. That's all I can spare. They walked in silence, the San Francisco afternoon bright and warm around them. The coffee shop was quiet, and they found a table in the back corner away from other customers. Daniel ordered them both coffee, remembering without asking that she took cream and no sugar. When he set the cup in front of her, something flickered in her eyes. You remembered, she said softly. I remember everything about you, Olivia. That's part of why I'm here. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, not drinking, just holding it like she needed something to do with her hands. So talk then. You came all this way. Say what you need to say. Daniel took a breath, organizing thoughts he'd rehearsed 1,000 times on the flight. First, I'm sorry. Deeply, truly sorry for how I treated you. You deserved so much better than what I gave you, and I have no excuse except my own fear and cowardice. Olivia didn't respond. Just watched him with those eyes he'd dreamed about for months. I ended things with Natasha the week after you left, he continued. I should have done it months before, but I was so caught up in meeting my father's expectations and protecting myself from being hurt again that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. I was treating you exactly the way Jennifer treated me, keeping you as my secret while maintaining the public facade that was safe and expected. And that was unforgivable. You're right, Olivia said quietly. It was unforgivable. Do you have any idea what it felt like? Watching you with her in public while I was your secret? Reading articles about you two while your side of my bed was still warm from where you'd left before dawn? I know, and I'm sorry. Daniel's voice was raw with regret. I've spent the last 6 months in therapy, working through why I do that, why I couldn't let myself be vulnerable with you, even though you were the first real thing I'd felt in years. I've had hard conversations with my father about boundaries. I've done the work, Olivia. Not to win you back, because I know I don't deserve that, but because I needed to become someone better than who I was. Olivia's eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that leaving me was the best thing you could have done. Not just for yourself, but for me too. You were brave enough to choose yourself when I couldn't choose you, and that woke me up. You made me see how badly I was living, how much I was hiding from real connection because I was afraid. I'm glad you're doing better, Olivia said, and she meant it. He could hear it in her voice. I really am. But if you came here hoping to pick up where we left off, I didn't, Daniel interrupted gently. I came to apologize and to tell you that you were right. You do deserve more than shadows. You deserve someone who's proud to be with you, who introduces you to their family, who shows up for you publicly and privately without reservation. You deserve someone brave enough to love you the way you deserve to be loved. Olivia was quiet for a moment, a tear finally escaping down her cheek. Thank you for saying that. I also came to tell you, Daniel continued, his voice soft but steady, that I'm working on becoming that person. Not because I expect anything from you, but because meeting you showed me what I was missing by living half a life. If you ever someday decided you wanted to give me a second chance, I would spend every day proving I've changed. But if you don't, if you've moved on, or you can't forgive me, I understand completely. You don't owe me anything, Olivia. I just needed you to know that what we had mattered. That you mattered more than anything else in my life, and I was too broken to see it until you were gone. Olivia wiped her eyes, her expression softening slightly. I did move on, Daniel. I had to. I built a life here that's mine, with people who value me and a career I'm proud of. I'm not the same person who left your city 6 months ago. I know, I can see it. You're thriving, and I'm so proud of you. But, she continued, and his heart leaped at that single word, I also haven't completely let go. Part of me kept hoping you'd show up eventually, that you'd figure out what really mattered. I hated that. I hoped for that. Hated feeling weak or like I was waiting for you. But here you are, and I don't know what to do with that. Daniel reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she didn't, he took her hand gently. Don't do anything. Not yet. I'm not asking for an answer or a decision. I just want you to know I'm here if you ever want to try again. Not the way it was before, but something real and honest and public. Something where you never have to question whether I'm proud to be with you, because I'll make sure the whole world knows. Olivia looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. That's a beautiful promise, Daniel. But promises are easy. Following through is hard.
I know.
So let me prove it. Not today, not even soon, but let me earn back your trust slowly. Let me show you I've changed before you decide anything. She pulled her hand back gently. I need time to think. This is a lot to process, and I won't make decisions based on how I feel in this moment. It's fair. That's more than fair. Daniel stood, leaving his coffee untouched. Thank you for listening. I know I didn't deserve even that much. As he turned to leave, Olivia called his name softly. Daniel. He turned back, hope and fear warring in his chest. I'm glad you came, she said, and I'm glad you're working on yourself. That matters, even if I'm not sure yet if it's enough. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. It's a start, and that's more than I had this morning. 3 months later, Daniel flew back to San Francisco. Not to ambush Olivia, but because she'd finally answered one of his carefully spaced emails suggesting they have dinner. Just dinner, to talk, to see where they both were. She'd said yes. He took her to a small Italian restaurant she'd mentioned loving in one of her emails. Nothing fancy, nothing designed to impress, just good food and quiet conversation. They talked about work, about her success in San Francisco and the changes he was making at Sterling Enterprises. They talked about therapy and growth and what they'd both learned in their time apart. I went on dates, Olivia admitted over dessert. After the first few months, nothing serious, but I needed to prove to myself that I could move on. Did it work? Daniel asked, and there was no jealousy in his voice, just genuine curiosity. Sort of. It proved I'm desirable and interesting and worthy of attention. But it also proved that I wasn't ready to let anyone in yet. Maybe I'm still not.
That's okay.
There's no timeline for healing. Olivia studied him across the table. You really have changed. The old Daniel would have been threatened by the idea of me dating other people. You would have tried to stake your claim. The old Daniel was an idiot who took you for granted. This Daniel knows how lucky he'd be if you gave him another chance, and that luck isn't something to take for granted. She smiled, a real smile that made his heart soar. I like this Daniel better. Me too, actually. Turns out being honest with yourself and others is a lot less exhausting than maintaining walls all the time. They walked through the San Francisco streets after dinner. Not touching, but close enough that their shoulders occasionally brushed. The city was beautiful at night, alive with energy and possibility. I don't know if I can do this again, Olivia said eventually, stopping to look out at the bay. The thought of opening myself up to you again, of being that vulnerable, it terrifies me. I know, and I understand if you can't. But I want you to know something, Olivia. He turned to face her fully, his expression open and honest. If you do decide to try again, it won't be like before. I want to take you to meet my father properly, not as my employee, but as the woman I'm dating. I want to bring you to company events on my arm and introduce you to everyone who matters in my life. I want to post photos of us together and tell anyone who asks that I'm incredibly lucky to be with you. I want all of it public and proud and real. Tears filled Olivia's eyes again. That's everything I wanted before. Oh no. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to be brave enough to offer it, but I'm offering it now, with no expectations. Take all the time you need to decide. I'll wait. Olivia wiped her eyes, then did something that surprised them both. She reached up and kissed his cheek softly. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for changing. Thank you for finally being brave. Thank you for being brave first, Daniel replied. You taught me what that looked like. They didn't get back together that night or even that month. But over the following weeks, they continued meeting for dinners and coffee and long walks through the city. Daniel flew to San Francisco every other weekend, fitting his schedule around hers. Never pressuring, but always showing up consistently. He sent her flowers at work with cards that said, "Proud of you," after her big presentations. He called when he said he would. He introduced her via video call to his father during one of their dinners, making it clear she was someone important in his life. And slowly, carefully, the walls around Olivia's heart began to soften. For months after that first dinner, Olivia flew back to their old city for a friend's wedding. Daniel met her at the airport. And when she saw him waiting with flowers and that genuine smile, something inside her clicked into place. I want to try again, she said without preamble. Not because I've forgotten what happened before, but because I see who you're becoming. I see the work you've done, and I believe you when you say things will be different. Daniel's face lit up with joy so pure, it took her breath away. I won't let you down this time. I promise. Don't promise, Olivia said, taking his hand. Just show me. Every day, in small ways and big ways. Show me that choosing you again was the right decision. I will, he said, pulling her close. Starting right now. He kissed her there in the airport arrivals area, in front of hundreds of strangers and several people with cameras. And later, when photos appeared online of Daniel Sterling kissing an unknown woman at the airport, he reposted them proudly with a caption that made Olivia cry. Her name is Olivia Bennett. She's brilliant, beautiful, and brave enough to give me a second chance I probably don't deserve. I'm the luckiest man alive. Their second beginning wasn't perfect. They had hard conversations about trust and boundaries. Olivia set clear expectations about what she needed, and Daniel met every one of them. They attended therapy together sometimes, working through the scars the past had left on both of them. But it was real, and public, and honest. And when Daniel finally introduced Olivia to his father properly at a family dinner 6 months later, Richard Sterling looked at his son and said grudgingly, "She makes you happy. I can see it. I suppose that matters more than connections." "It matters more than anything," Daniel agreed, squeezing Olivia's hand under the table. 1 year after their second beginning, Daniel took Olivia back to that same Italian restaurant in San Francisco where they'd had their first dinner after reuniting. After dessert, he got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. "I messed this up once by being too afraid to choose you completely," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I won't make that mistake again. Olivia Bennett, you're my best friend, my greatest supporter, and the bravest person I know. Will you marry me?" Olivia looked at him kneeling there. This man who'd broken her heart and then done the hard work to heal his own so he could love her properly. She thought about the journey they'd both taken, the pain and growth and courage it had required. She thought about how he'd proven day after day for over a year that change was possible when someone wanted it badly enough. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." And when he slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, Olivia felt something she'd been missing for so long finally settle into place. She'd chosen herself first, left when she needed to, and healed in her own time. And because she'd been brave enough to do that, she'd created space for something real to grow. She'd learned that love shouldn't hide in shadows, that she deserved to be chosen openly, proudly, completely. and that sometimes second chances are possible when both people are brave enough to change. Their wedding was beautiful in public, filled with friends and family and joy. And when Daniel looked at his wife during their first dance, he whispered, "Thank you for being brave enough to leave, and brave enough to come back." "Thank you for becoming someone worth coming back to," Olivia replied, and they both knew they meant every word.